and welcome back to Scale to Exit with Alejandra Santos. Checking in, very tired. It's been one of those days where you have a day and a half where the meetings run over, and I'm drinking coffee afternoon. Anyways, I am very excited for today's episode, and I am very excited because this is a powerhouse of a lady. She is a Forbes contributor. She comes here and is going to talk about personal branding. And I don't know about you guys, but even though I come on videos all the time and I do content and I do speaking engagements, sometimes you tend to freeze. So I went to this city meeting, and when the moment came to give me 30 seconds to really say my spiel of the company, I froze. And I really had something written and prepared and everything, and I actually froze. So, anyways, I have this powerhouse of a lady coming in here today, and she's going to be speaking about the importance of personal branding, how you can actually craft a 30-second spiel, a snapshot. She calls it a snapshot versus the elevator pitch. So those two are very different. She's going to be talking about how to overcome sales challenges, especially as a woman. She will come in and explain to you guys how to build a thoughtful leadership brand and why is that important as well. And she's going to discuss a few branding mistakes that you should avoid as a business owner. No matter where you are in your business, you want to avoid these mistakes. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and read her bio. Okay, so today on Scale to Exit podcast, we have Cheryl Robinson, who is an international speaker, a doctorate of organizational leadership, founder of Creative Renegade Media, and regular contributor at Forbes. She's earned 34 editors' pick recognitions and covers leadership, careers, and how successful women have pivoted in their careers. So she is an amazing, amazing, amazing human being. I actually loved having her in the podcast. We had a really nice conversation. I learned so much from what she was explaining to us. So I really hope that you go home and while you're listening to this podcast and really write down everything that she's giving you, because there's some very valuable nuggets of information there. Again, no matter where you're tuning from, please, I would really appreciate it here. And I'm talking on behalf of my team and I to please like, subscribe, and if you want, comment on our podcast, Scale to Exit. Every episode that we do is curated with so much love and deep intention to really help you become more aware of what kind of business you can build with all of these tools and what your exit could look like if you start planning it from right now. So, without further ado, soundtrack provided by my dog. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring her in. And as always, I will see you on the other side. Welcome to Scale to Exit, Cheryl. I am so excited to have you here on this platform. You're an international speaker. You have been the founder of Creative Renegade Media, and you have been a regular contributor for Forbes. And you have been monumental in supporting women who have pivoted in their careers. So I want to know what drives your passion to pick this area where not a lot of people fall into.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. First of all, I am really excited to have this conversation. It's so important. I always felt that I was going to inspire people growing up. And I am now able to do that through the platform with my column at Forbes, where I am able to cover leadership, careers, and women who have successfully pivoted in their careers.
So, because you interview a lot of women, right? I imagine that have been successful or pivoted in their careers. What are some common themes that you see across from like the origin of like, I want to pivot my career into maybe becoming a business owner or maybe into diving into something more that is more in align with their values? Like, what's the main themes that happen there?
Yeah. So there's three core themes that happen. And I know this because I did my dissertation on the art of pivoting. So the three core themes is one in no particular order is one, self-confidence. People have to believe that they deserve more than what they have. A lot of times you see people stay in their 9 to 5 jobs or try to make their business work, even though it's failing and they don't want to let go of it. So, but they don't have the confidence to move on. So that's one, is that self confidence to know that when you leap, you're going to be able to find something else. The second theme is risk. So people who successfully pivot are the ones who are able to say, you know what? Staying where I'm at is worse than anything I might face if I pivot or try something new. And then the third one is networking. It's understanding that the relationships that you build are the people who are going to help you during that pivot.
So you have to like believe that what is in front of you is not what you deserve. So basically say, I am not comfortable where I am. I'm ready to get out of where this area because I deserve to have more. And then to look at the fear and look at the risk saying, if I stay here, I know what's going on. But if I want to go to a certain place, then I'm going to jump into that unknown because I know that I can overcome whatever is there. And then the third one is really building the support system, basically making sure that you build that ecosystem or community around you, right? That can support you in your next journey. That's very powerful. So, what are the most common pivots that you have seen?
The most common, oh, the most common is people who leave their corporate job or their 9 to 5 desk job
Yeah,
and start their own business. That's
I
the
love that.
most common.
I love that. And these are these women that are moms or there's this woman like what is that like that the demographic that usually you have seen that jump in and say, you know what, I'm just gonna do my own thing.
It really varies.
Yeah.
I have interviewed over 700 individuals. So many of them have kids, many of them don't. Some have a
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
and yeah, it varies.
I love that. So I'm very inspired because it just seems to me, right, that in the last few years, women are taking more ownership and taking more charge over their lives. And they're like, okay, I'm tired of like reporting to someone else. I'm ready to take the next leap of faith into my life. And and the statistics say that women that are in VC, I'm sorry, women that are startup founders or owners are actually more successful than men, and they're better at scaling a business than men, and they're actually use more like they use the funds of venture capitals even way more than like in a better way than men. So we're like just better than men in general. Have you come across of like every like more successful stories that you have when you have interviewed this woman?
Yeah, the when women start their own businesses, we understand what it's like to wear many hats and how
Mm-hmm.
to be the problem solvers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've been in these situations, but a lot of times I've been in these situations where people are like, oh no, I don't know what to do. And they talk more about the problem than they
Uh-huh.
do the solution. And
Mm-hmm.
I find women talk more about the solution. You address the problem,
Yeah.
but okay, let's focus on that solution. How are we going to get to where we want to go?
Yeah. And I love that. I always tell my team and anybody, you're going to bring me a problem, bring me a solution, because we're here to solve problems, not to talk about the problems. We're not,
Right.
we're right. So I totally agree with that. And I know you used to have a media platform, Ready to Roar, right? And then you also did the Ivy Startup Conference. So I know you also have been part of the whole startup world. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when I started Ready to Roar, this was ages ago, back in 2015. I thought I was going to be a world renowned event planner, and I was going to travel to different countries with different clients and put on the most spectacular events.
Yeah.
That's not what happened. I started joining as a new entrepreneur, as a new founder. I started
Mhm.
joining networking groups, and people started asking me, well, what type
Mhm.
of events do you want to put on? And at that time, really the statistics hit hard where women weren't receiving as much venture capital as men
Mhm.
were. And I
Mhm.
said, wouldn't it be cool to start in it, or yeah, have an event where, so with this, it was men and women,
Uh-huh.
but where companies could come, pitch their ideas, pitch businesses that they've already started to a room full of investors, venture capitalists, and angel investors.
Yeah.
Here is where it gets a little sticky. As an entrepreneur that was brand new, green as could be with having my own company, when I was looking for partners, I
Yeah.
was more focused on personalities than skill sets.
Mm.
And when this Ivy startup conference started to take shape, I was
Mhm.
so excited that my partners, oh, we had such a great time. They were funny. We got along, but none of us had ever worked together before. And with that, as we moved on in this process, which it took about a year and a half from ideation to execution, I realized that their skill sets weren't necessarily what I needed to make this happen. And I bring this up because especially for women, women love the sexy. They like the branding and the logos.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the hard part of entrepreneurship, which is the selling, which is the client relations,
Mhm.
that's where you really have to focus.
Mhm.
And as I was building out the Ivy League Startup Conference, it was very much our skill sets with the partners I had did not mesh. I loved them as people, but as workers, we were not compatible. And that was a hard lesson to learn.
But that was a good lesson to learn, because that happens at a lot of more often than what you think it happens, because sometimes teams don't work, right? So partnerships
Mhm.
don't work as well.
Yeah.
So it's a good lesson to learn for the future. You said something really important. You said women don't focus as much on the sales part and like the client relationship. And I know that is very true, but a lot of people are very uncomfortable with selling too. How did you overcome? How did you become like a good seller for your business when you were in that position?
Yeah. So once you get over the sexy part of entrepreneurship, you have to build that self confidence.
Yeah.
And what I learned early on was if you're not sharing with people what you're doing, they have
Mm-hmm.
no idea. And
Yeah.
if they don't know, they can't help you.
Uh-huh.
And if you don't ask, they can't help you. So that's where the relationships come into play.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, as a journalist and right with my column, I get pitched all the time. And some stories are the worst story. I should say worst, are the most boring stories. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
The most boring stories, but they had the gumption to pitch.
Yeah.
And I started taking that into consideration and saying, okay, if I want to be an entrepreneur, you
Yeah.
have to have gumption. You have
Uh-huh.
to ask.
Yeah.
And if you believe in yourself, if you believe in what you're doing, if you believe in what
Mhm.
you're selling,
Mhm.
others are going to be attracted to that.
Yeah.
And it takes practice. I
Mm.
tell people all the time, start with people you trust. Say,
Mhm.
hey, I have a pitch. Can I run it
Mhm.
by you? And let's see if it works.
Yeah.
Because when you start with people you trust and you are open to the honest feedback, your pitch
Mhm.
is going to get better. And
Mhm.
then when it's a stranger, who cares? If it flops, who cares? You move on to the next one, right? But at least you have that, you have built up that self confidence.
So basically, have self confidence in yourself, believe in your vision so much that everybody else believe in it as well, and then practice your pitch until people say no all the time anyway. So just continue delivering the message until somebody picks it up, and then always share what you're doing, right? Like always,
Always share.
and ask. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
My
Basically, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah. My
that's a
biggest
big one.
thing is, if the worst thing anyone can say to you is no, why not try?
Why not try? Yeah, why not try? We're so scared of no's, like, and no matter the gender, like men, but men
Mhm.
less. But we are so scared of getting the no's. But honestly, what is happens? We're not gonna die. Like we're still breathing, you
Right.
know.
Right. Right. Nothing's caught on fire. And working in Hollywood,
Yeah,
the best piece of advice, now this was a whole lifetime ago,
yeah,
but I was working for an agent and a client called and, oh, something happened on set. I, get in touch with the agent and she goes, is anyone dying? I said, no. She goes, they can pump the brakes. They can wait a few hours for me to respond. And I always took that with me, that no one's dying. No one's getting hurt.
no one's getting hurt.
Try. You have nothing to lose.
You have nothing to lose, especially in an industry like Hollywood. It's such a hard industry to break in, and no matter what your position is, as a director, or whatever it is, it's
Yep.
such a hard industry. Because you're in media, right? And you've developed a media platform. How important is personal branding when it comes to being a business owner or even scaling your business?
Branding is huge and it's
Yeah,
twofold. I see a lot of people focus on the now and the
yeah.
future. However, which is great, you have to. However, your branding starts way earlier than that. And it doesn't matter if you're pivoting, changing industries completely, changing companies. Your brand is not just your outward image, it's who you are
Mm-hmm.
as a person. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
I say it starts early.
Mm-hmm.
And that branding of who you are, how you conduct the business
Mm-hmm.
stays with you.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you start branding and your character is strong, it doesn't matter which industries people are in, they know you and they're going to want to help you. So it comes down to that reputation. So reputation is that huge part that is going to catapult your current and future endeavors with branding.
So what are a few things that people and business owners, and entrepreneurs can do right now that don't that they have developed a business brand, but they haven't really developed a personal brand yet? What are a few steps into that direction that they can take?
Become a thought leader.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it sounds easy, but it takes a lot of work. And just what you're doing, you're
Yeah.
consistent with your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
You are building that brand. You are building yourself up as a thought leader in this space where people don't talk about exiting
Mm-hmm.
businesses. They
Mm-hmm.
don't, or not
Mm-hmm.
everyone, but very few people talk about this. So you're finding that niche. and you're developing that thought leadership. And LinkedIn is huge. TikTok, Instagram, if you're able to put out genuine content that allows people to follow step by step, like here's how I did it, here's how you can do it, those actionable steps, that is where you build up your self brand.
I love that you say that. I love, love, love that you say that. And most of the times when I have people like yourself, like in media branding, come to the podcast, I reiterate the fact that you do have to work in your personal branding, because people look at people buy because of people connect with
Yep.
people. They don't go to a business, it's a people that makes the business that they connect with and they buy from. So if you don't present yourself as a thought leader, like you said, and it can be like little stuff, like maybe publishing an article, like you said, right? Or step by step actionable insights that they can implement themselves without the need of the help of anyone. Or a podcast as well, even though it takes a lot of time to do a podcast. Go for it,
Go
commit
for
to it
it.
once a month.
Yeah.
Right? Is what
Yeah.
matters, is that consistency and commitment and showing up all the time. That makes a big difference, because the world's becoming so digital. If you're not in the digital space,
Mm-hmm.
you don't exist. That's
Right.
how I see it.
And it's made the world smaller too.
Oh,
And
talk about
you
that.
just
Yeah.
never know who's connected to who around the
Yeah.
world. Yeah.
Around the world. You're right about that, because you may have connections in Europe, and then
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we get I have connections, and we can tap into each other, and that's how the world's becoming smaller. This is true. Going back to branding, what are some branding mistakes that you have seen when people position themselves as that leader, or for growth or transition in their businesses? What are some mistakes that you have seen founders and business owners make?
They don't tell the truth. And it's okay to embellish. Everyone embellishes,
I love it.
but there has to be some backup to it.
Okay.
And there also has to be the credibility behind it. So a lot with self-branding, it is, and especially in the media world, it is called pay to play.
Mm.
And for the people who don't understand or don't never heard that before, that's when people say, "Hey, if you give me $10,000, I'll get you on the Today Show. I'll get you on
Mhm.
this magazine. I'll get you on something." And it's not real. So maybe the Today Show wasn't a good example, but there's different publications, and I'm using air quotes for the people who are listening, yeah, and not the video. But these publications, they're able to copy or mirror, say, yahoo.com. And these are just hypotheticals here. They put up PDFs. They're not actual links on a website, they're PDFs. And you pay $10,000 and you can say, "Oh, I was in Yahoo Finance." But then when you actually click on the link, it's a PDF. Or if you, some places say it's $500, and then every month you have to pay them $100 to keep this fake URL with a PDF up. If you don't pay it, they take it down. And that has happened a lot when I get pitched for features. People are like, "Oh, I've been in this magazine, I've been here." And there have been like some television segments. And when I go back and I click, they're no longer there. So that's what I mean. Like, you have to be truthful. And it's okay to not have like big publications. It's okay to not be in these big publications when you start. Local media is perfectly fine. And we look for the local media, because once local media starts picking you up, you have 2 or 3 local spots under your belt. Okay, this is fine. You don't need to be in these huge publications to land another huge publication. So I always steer clear of pay to play. it's a big scam, and it's hard. It's hard to gain back your reputation after that, because then when I see another pitch come in, I'm like, nope, I remember you. I'm not even engaging in this.
Wait, do people actually know that though, that they're getting a PDF? Like, is that, do
So,
they?
some do, some don't.
Okay.
And it really just depends. But there are a lot of people out there who try to scam and say, for $10,000, I can get you in all these top tier media publications, and it's not the actual case.
Wow. Well, that's a good thing to bring awareness to, because I don't think, I mean, there's so many platforms that have pitched me to like put me, in media outlets and things like that. And I never trust, because I see like, okay, so this is weird. Why would it be so affordable, right? To be put in those
Yeah.
media outlets? But for people that are listening and that they get pitched as well and they jump into those platforms, like, how do they know? How can they spot that they're being scammed before they actually jump into that?
So, one, I would definitely ask for at least 10 examples,
Okay. Yeah.
because within those 10 examples, you should see if it looks funny or not.
Okay.
And if someone is coming to you saying, hey, New York Times will run an article on you for $5,000, that unethically, that's very unethical. Like, we
Okay.
sign contracts saying we do not accept money to feature people. So you should never have to pay for a feature. You may have to pay your
Okay.
publicist, and
Okay.
that's different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But for someone to say, hey, this right, if you give X writer $2,000, they'll publish your story. That is not a thing. That's a scam in itself.
Well, that's really good to know. Yeah, it's really great information. So I had no idea that it was unethically for people to charge you to be placed in, because, oh wow, okay. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I get asked all the time. I'm like, I don't want to, the who's who, or that platform ask all the time, and I know it's a scam. Yeah.
Scam. Scam. If you have to pay to receive an award, it is not a real award.
It is
So,
not a real award. I agree with
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the exiting side. How have you, because you are a speaker and you have interviewed 700 women, right? Was 700 women, and you also develop your startups, your businesses. So when it comes to exiting, what role does personal branding play there?
That's a good question. So, personal branding for me, when I decided to close Ready to Roar, I
Mm-hmm.
said, is this really in line with who I am now
Yeah.
and where I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And if you go back to you're constantly building your branding, your awareness, I wasn't afraid of what people would think. I didn't care about the judgment because of who I am as a as a founder,
Mm-hmm.
as a person. It was difficult because I had done it for over 5 years, and it becomes more like a baby, your child, but it wasn't in line with who I was becoming. And
Mm.
that's when I said, okay, it is time to exit this and start what I really want to do in this moment. Because I 100% wholeheartedly believe people evolve, people pivot. And it is okay if what you have been doing is no longer aligned with who you want to be.
Yeah, I strongly believe in the growth as well. Like, I feel like if we're not growing like internally, then we're not. What are we doing?
Right.
That's how I think. Some people like to be comfortable, and that's okay too for them. But for me, like, that's how I feel. Like, if you're not growing, then what are we doing? When it
Mhm.
comes to like the values as well, I do agree with you that you have to be aligned with whatever you're doing. If you're not working for people, you must do something that aligns with yourself. Because then what? Then again, what are we doing, right?
But
'Cause-
right. So let me ask you a question.
yes.
How would you describe your self brand?
So I try to do a lot of like that leadership, activities. Like, I do events, I do the podcast, I try to be very active. And the reason why I do that is because I am very deep rooted in my mission of like supporting business owners and entrepreneurs in really building businesses that an asset that they can cash out with a high return at the end of the day. So that's my whole personal branding around. And I've been doing this for 17, a little bit over 16 years, believe it or not. So it's, and I talk about it all the time. Like when I do the interviews with podcast, or when, there's an article, or like, yeah, I'm so passionate. So I will say that that's my branding, but then also my branding is also to be very approachable by people.
Mhm.
So I don't like to be the core. I don't have anything against this, but I don't like to present myself as a corporate button up person, because I'm not. I'm very casual, and I am like super educated, MBAs, all this stuff, right? Certificates, but I don't like to present myself that way. I like to approach myself in a way that even the janitor can talk to me. You see? So
Mhm.
that's my branding.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Let's go back to you.
I told you this was going to happen.
I
It's
know she did. You
journalist
did
in
say
me.
you said to me, "I'm gonna ask you questions in the middle," and I'm like, "Okay, bring it." Let's go to storytelling, because that's an important area, and I feel like you probably can give us some really good advice about storytelling. People struggle at storytelling when it comes to pitching to investors, when it comes to pitching your business as just to sell it. So, what are some things that founders and business owners can do to sharpen their stories to attract the right audience?
Investors invest in the founders.
Mm-hmm.
They invest in the business second.
Yeah.
And I see that even with the pitches that I receive for my column. People don't understand that you have literally 2 sentences or 30 seconds to share who you are, what you do, and why you do it. And people always I like to think of it as an inverted triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of starting with who you were
Mm-hmm.
and then building up to what you're doing and who you are now,
Mm-hmm.
you flip it. You start with who you are now and what you're doing. Then you talk about your past, which then shows the credibility of how you got to where you are today.
Oh, I love that. Wow.
So for an example, and this was early on in my writing career, early on, and I never made this mistake again. I asked someone, tell me about your background, thinking that they were going to give me a nice 5-minute short answer. Turned into 45 minutes of her entire background. And at that point, I didn't have the heart to cut her off. Now I do. Now I'm just like, whoa, okay. So tell me about X, right? Because people don't care what you have done in the past. They care about what you're doing now. And if it takes 2 sentences, 30 seconds, that's how much time you have to hook people
Mm-hmm.
into whether or not they're going to continue listening or if
Uh-huh.
they're going to start thinking about something else.
Yeah.
They don't want to know what you
Yeah.
do. So start with who you are now, what you do, why you do it. And if you can, add statistics in there. Any type of number helps.
Wow. So that's powerful. So people do it backwards. Yeah. They start with their story on why they're doing, the background, the
Yep.
past, who you were, and then they go into the present. But you're saying present now, who you are, what
Mhm.
you're doing, why you're doing it, bring statistics, and then maybe talk about talk about the past.
Yep. Because especially when you're talking to investors,
Yeah.
you want to give them
Hmm.
information that they can then ask about, even
Yeah.
as a journalist.
Yeah.
If I'm interested, then I say, well, how did you get to here?
Hmm.
What was that career change for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
But people's attention spans are so short. You do not want to waste that valuable time talking about your past because they lose interest and then they don't care about what you're doing now. And then you've wasted that precious moment for you to get what you were there for or to make a good connection.
That's so powerful because you said something really important. People's attention span is has gotten shorter through the years, unfortunately. How has that affected? Like, I mean, it's hard to pitch in 30 seconds with everything that you just said, like hook and then what you're doing in 30 seconds. Like, what are some things that we can like cut it to the point? Like, what would you recommend?
So I like to call it a snapshot.
A
And it's
snapshot.
different than an elevator pitch. Here's why.
Okay.
A snapshot is 1 to 2 sentences.
Uh-huh.
An elevator pitch is 30 seconds, right?
Okay.
So in that 30 seconds, you can probably get 4 to 5 sentences.
Yes.
Why the snapshot? A few years ago, I was at an Adobe conference, and Adobe said marketers should make their videos 6 seconds long. And the whole audience gasped. But if you think about it, everyone's on YouTube. How long do you have on YouTube before you skip that ad? 5 to 6 seconds. Within those 5 to 6 seconds, those brands, those ads are able to tell you who they are, what they do, and why you should click on them. So a snapshot, and I'll use myself as an example. So here's my snapshot. 2 sentences, extremely quick. Hi, I'm Dr. Cheryl Robinson. I'm an international speaker, founder of Creative Renegade Media. I have a column at Forbes where I have earned 34 editors' picks and have interviewed over 700 individuals. Boom. Out of that one sentence, you are able to line up so many questions for me to continue to share my story.
Interesting. So, snapshot versus the elevator pitch is 2 sentences. The elevator can fit 4 to 5
Yep.
sentences. And basically on those 2 sentences, you say the main milestones, right? I would say that you want to
Yep.
share. So don't start with your emotional story, all of that takes so much room. Just go to the point. Hi, my name is Alejandra Santos. I've done this, and that, and then we welcome questions. Did I get it right?
There you
Okay,
go.
cool.
There you go. And if you want if you want something for someone, you can say, "Hi, I'm Jane Doe. I'm the founder of X. We are looking for X funding, and we have already." Or maybe I'd flip it. I would say, "Hi, I'm Jane Doe. I'm founder of X. We help 1 million people do Y. We're looking for X amount of money. If you're, if you're in a short crunch with, an investor, just
Yeah.
boom, boom, boom."
Okay. To the point. I
To the
love to
point.
the point statements because that's how I talk anyways, direct to the point.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not used to the whole buffer, that doesn't work well for me.
Small talk. I hate small talk. Get to the point.
Get to the point. Nobody here has time. Just get to it.
Yeah.
And once we talk about it, and now we can buffer it up. It's fine. We
Yeah.
have the time to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that you said that. So going to your media company that you have, how, because media is so interesting to me. as someone that built a media platform, right, and from scratch, and earned 34 Forbes editors pick, what does it take to scale visibility and credibility?
That is a wonderful question. Creative Renegade Media is brand new. It's a new concept that I have around people's short attention spans.
Okay.
So it is short form books.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I am building out. Who wants to read a 300-page leadership book? Nobody. Who wants to listen to an 11-hour audio version of that book? Nobody. So I am working on short form books that provide to the point content that people can apply into the world. And that comes down to marketing and sharing who I am and why. Because again, I go back to, if people don't know what you're doing, they don't know. They can't help you out because they're not mind readers. And if someone was a mind reader, they'd be a gazillionaire. So that's, that's what I go back to.
I love that. So, and you touch a really good point. Like, I don't think I know a lot of people that can sit down, besides actors or actresses, that can sit down and like read, thousands of words, of books and pages, and just do that. I mean, I know a few actors and actresses that do that. That's why I say that, but
Yeah.
not like people like us that are busy and doing businesses, and especially audio books. Those are really long as well. You kind of like, after a few hours, you're like, okay, I don't think I want to go back to this. There's podcasts that are 5 hours long as well, which
Right.
I don't know how people do that. I don't know how people.
If it's fiction, if it's true crime,
Yeah.
that's totally different.
Yeah.
I'm focusing more on the leadership,
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
information. But
Yeah.
how many times do you hit speed 2x to
Yeah.
listen through a video, listen
Yeah.
through a podcast
Yeah.
or an audio book,
So how do you select the people that you work with for your business? Is it particular kind of leadership that you're looking for in order to develop these books? What's the process for that?
So a lot of it right now are the people that I know.
Okay.
And I've been able to interview quite a few. So I'm starting there. And then I'm going to be expanding it out. The goal is within 5 to 6 years to be able to bring other authors on under the media company.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to be an author.
Yeah.
I'm straight to the point. Nice and sweet. This is actually very helpful to build the credibility, though, for other people that we've been talking about, the leadership authority, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So it just gives people, because nobody works with you unless they trust you. It's just,
Right.
it goes back to that same, even if you're selling a product or a service, like nobody wants to work
What?
with you. Yeah.
Right. And
Unless they,
a lot of times when I get pitched, I find founders or their publicists, they always just talk about the business. I want to know who the person is because as consumers, we buy because of who the founders are,
yeah.
who the team is,
Yeah.
product second. And that's what, with storytelling, I wish more people would understand this. You have got to be vulnerable because when you're vulnerable, that's what makes the best content. No one wants surface level answers. They want to hear you tried a business. It failed 5 times, but you know what? You learned to fail quick and here's how you got up. That makes a
Yeah.
great story.
Yeah.
Not the people who say, "Oh, everything I touch is gold." That
Yeah.
no one cares because they want it to be relatable. And
Yeah.
people fail. People don't know what they're doing, and they like to know that others are in the same situation that they're in.
Yes. Yes. I agree with you. Nobody wants to hear a happy story.
No. Well, maybe they like the happy ending, but they want to know that
Yes.
people are struggling too. You
Correct.
know?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, share your struggles, not your whole happy life that you had.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So some people are not very easy. They're not very comfortable in getting vulnerable. How big is vulnerability when it comes to becoming a leader?
It's everything
It's everything. Mm-hmm.
because the vulnerability is what connects you with
Mm-hmm.
your team,
Yeah.
with your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they don't think that they can relate to you, they
Yeah.
tune out.
Yeah.
And you have to start, you have very few that when you're speaking, you have 5 minutes to connect with your audience. And if you don't, they're tuned out.
Just 5 minutes. That's all we get. That's all we get.
That's, yep.
And I
Yeah.
think 5 minutes might be too long. Maybe all we get is
It could
30.
be.
Yeah. Be
It
30
could be.
seconds.
Yeah.
When you did your shift on Ready to Roar, when you were like, okay, I'm ready to just close this up, I'm done, I'm exiting this business, what kind of internal transitions did you had to go through to embody that decision? Because I believe that was a very impactful and strong decision you had to make.
Yeah. I had to first, I had to get rid of the email. I still have I still have the URLs.
Okay.
But I had to get rid of the email. I had to get rid of the website.
Yeah.
And I did it in baby steps. And for
Okay.
me, I was able to do that. Some people, uh, they're just forced to shut down immediately.
Yeah.
But internally, I had to keep reminding myself
Mm-hmm.
that this is who I was.
Yeah.
This isn't who I am. And this is not where I want to go.
Okay.
And do I want to, first, it was, do I want to keep putting my creative energy behind it?
Mm-hmm.
And every time I did put creative energy behind it, I would get a knot in my stomach
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I wanted to focus on something that's really been in the back of my mind for a long time. And then two, do I want to keep paying for this?
Yeah.
No, I want to, there's a bigger picture, and that money and that time could then be applied to Creative Renegade Media. And those were the baby steps I took. And the loss of identity is hard for people. There are people who are with companies for 20, 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
and all that's how they're known.
Yeah.
So and so,
Yeah.
vice president of X company, or,
Yeah.
and once you take that vice president of X company away, after you take CEO away, well,
Yeah.
who are you?
Yeah.
And that's where people struggle, especially
Yeah.
with retirement,
Yeah.
because for so long they were wrapped up in this identity,
Yeah.
and now you no longer have it. And we are in a world
Yeah.
where what you do, who you are, is very important, your
Mm-hmm.
status, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and people struggle. But it's baby steps. If you're having a hard time, just do one thing. Like, I shut down my website first. Okay. Still had the email, but the website was down. Okay. Then I have to shut down the email, but I still have my URL. So it's
Yeah.
not completely gone,
Yeah.
And then you register with the state, you're filing to shut it down.
Yeah.
It's just those baby steps.
Yeah.
And then by the time you get to the end, you're like, why was I stressing? What,
Yeah.
but it gave your mind
Yeah.
a chance to comprehend what was going on,
Yes.
to acknowledge what was going on,
Mm-hmm.
and to be okay with what was going on.
So it's interesting that you say the identity crisis after leaving your business, which is your baby, is huge. And it's statistically saying people that exit their business, about 80 to 90% of those are not happy with their exit, even if it's a voluntary or involuntary. Well, involuntary, we already know, but voluntary exits, like you already plan, you sell, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Even if you go through the whole momentum of picking up a buyer, all of that, what comes with the process of it, 80 to 90% are not happy with that. because of the identity piece that comes after that. Like, what do I do after this? Like, where do I go?
Yep.
And you talking about it because you had a business already and you closed down your business because you had to make that decision internally. Can I ask you, why did you sell your business? And if you did not, why didn't you sell?
No. So at the end of the day, I was a solo. How do you say it? I can't even say the word.
Solopreneur.
Solopreneur. Yeah. And no, I did not sell it. And COVID hit hard. And
Yes.
when that happened, I really had to take a step back and say,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? I think I would love to have a business one day that was profitable enough to sell, but
Yeah.
no, as a solopreneur, no, I shut it down.
So even though I can help you once you want to build your business that you can sell, I can be there for you.
All right,
That's my role, Cheryl. I
yeah,
got you.
yeah,
Okay.
you'll be the author, or
Yes.
and then you'll help me. I'll help you with the writing. You help me with
Yes.
the selling,
We
and there
will
we
help
go.
each other.
Yeah.
This is support,
Yes.
one another. But I mean, but the fact that you had a business and you had to take the hard decision, especially because COVID hit and COVID wiped down so many businesses.
So many.
That was so hard. Do you want to like share a little bit of that experience?
Yeah. So I had I had pivoted from the event company
Mm-hmm.
to developing leadership workshops
Yeah.
under Ready to Roar.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2019, the end of
Yeah.
2019, I had one of the largest contracts I have ever had. And I said, this is scaling my business. This is
Yeah.
going to take me to the next level.
Yes.
And every meeting went great. In early 2020,
Yeah.
I signed my contract. I submitted my invoice. And 2 days later, everything was quarantined.
Oh my God.
And at that point, the company that I had the contract with was not
Yeah.
equipped to do anything virtually. They had
Yeah.
no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
And that fizzled. And when that fizzled, I said to myself, is this really what you want to do? Like, do you want to keep building this?
Yeah.
And it was a hard no. It was, I just, people are still recovering from the pandemic, which is, even after 5 years.
Yeah.
And it was then where, although I was getting smaller contracts, it wasn't enough to scale the way
Yes.
that this other contract was
Was
gonna
going to.
help
Yeah.
me scale.
Yeah.
And and they never recovered. So it was a whole snowball
Yeah.
effect. And that's what led me to say, you know what? We got to do something else here.
Yes, you were not happy with it. Besides, yeah. So, but this is our leadership workshops. So you've done leadership development for like a long, long time.
Long time.
Long
Yeah,
time.
almost 30 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's insanely fun and good because you have seen so many things. What are the biggest breakthroughs that you have seen with people with leadership development?
It's the pivot the perception.
Okay.
So many people, they are in the tunnel, they're in that tunnel, and it's
Yeah.
hard for them to think or imagine big.
Uh-huh.
And when you're in that tunnel focus, it's also hard to understand where other people are coming from. So I've worked with different companies where the finance team, the advertising team, and the business development teams, they don't work together because they all have different requirements, especially when it comes to money. So business development is going, okay, for us to scale, we need to do X, Y, and Z. Then marketing comes in and says, well, we really can't market X. Z is better. And then we could do this type of campaign with Z. And then they go to the finance company or the department, excuse me. And the finance department goes, well, we have about $5 for what you want to do compared to this $10,000 that you need. And it's when they can understand where they get out of the tunnel vision and can start to understand the different constraints, the different perspectives of the different departments, you see the light bulb go on.
Wow.
Because when you're able to collaborate and see different perspectives, that's when you're actually able to create something working together that is going to be profitable. Because you're not arguing. How much time do departments, companies waste because people are just arguing and nothing gets done?
Yeah.
But once leaders can step back and say, okay, I can understand it from this perspective. Where's that solution? Right? That goes back to our earlier point about coming not with problems, but with solutions.
Yes.
Things move so much more quicker for companies.
Wow. Okay, so you said a lot of good stuff. Let me see if I got this one right. So first, I'm getting ready here. Okay, what you said resonates with me in a way because in a lot of ways, but mainly when you start a company, you are all of those departments. You're the marketing department, the business development, the finance, you're all of those. And you know, because you're collaborating with yourself, you know what each one of them need, right? In like the big picture. But then once you start scaling and you start dividing those roles, then you need to continue being that visionary behind them, basically. Like give them your eyes for those departments to collaborate together and see what you see. So that's what leadership, those are the breakthroughs that happen that you teach the owner on how to do that.
Right. Or the team members
Or the
and
team members.
the departments. Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge. And how do you if you want to give some strategies there, what are some things, actionable insights that people can implement in their business as they scale in order for them, to help their teams navigate?
The biggest question is, well, how do you see this going? What are your thoughts on this?
Okay.
Because a lot of leaders, let's take leaders out.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
like to think they're right, everyone else is wrong. But a simple question of, oh, how do you see this? That's where it starts. Because if you don't ask that question, people get mad, people get resentful.
Yeah.
And then you're just going down, right? This tunnel vision. And you're not seeing what's outside of that.
Okay.
So that's the biggest one, is to ask that question. What are your thoughts on this?
I like that. I always ask my team that, like, what are your thoughts on this? Because I want to get feedback, especially because I don't want to be the only. There's people out there that listen to you, and watch you. And what are you guys? What do you guys think of what I am doing and presenting? And that's big, but not every leader can ask those questions too, because they have to get out of the ego part. Yeah. What do you tell? What is one thing that you've done with leaders that have so much ego that can't really? They need to get rid of that in order to become a good leader.
So there's a fine line between having being self-confident and being cocky. Because I do like to say your ego is your biggest asset.
Okay.
You have to, and what I mean by that is you have to be able to market yourself.
Yes.
You have to be able to share your ideas. But there's that fine line of being like, hey, I know what I'm talking about, versus all these stupid people, they know nothing, right? Like there's that fine line. And it comes back to being open to having conversations. we're no longer in that top-down approach. People aren't that, like, the younger generations aren't having it. They want to be a
Yeah.
part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And I do find if you ask too many people what they think, it slows things down. There are times when you can have those open conversations, and then there are other times where you just have to make the decision and go with it. But the first step to really breaking free from that mindset of I'm right, everybody else is wrong, is it just goes back to that question. What are your thoughts on this?
What are your thoughts on this? Everybody memorize. What are your thoughts on this? Okay. It's a very important question to ask your team and your partners too. And whoever, personal wise, that question also goes a long way. What are your thoughts on this?
Of this, yeah.
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 That is huge. Okay, yes, a few more questions on leadership because you have so much knowledge and I just feel like you can like share a little bit more. You've done this for 30 years. How did you get into leadership development? I know we talked about your passion at the beginning, but leadership development is such a I feel like people get into leadership development after, not at the beginning of their career, maybe after later, but how did you get into it?
So my mom was a leadership development facilitator and
Okay.
trainer, and I started with her when I was 14.
Wow.
And we worked over the summer at local community colleges
Okay.
for teenagers. And so back then it necessarily wasn't leadership development, but it was self-confidence
Mm-hmm.
building. And what really resonated was I was a teenager too.
Yeah.
So I was able to connect with them. And then that just was a theme throughout my life. I love public speaking.
Yeah.
I love teaching others. And it just, yeah, it just developed
Just
from
develops
there.
over
Yeah.
time. And the pillars of like being a great leader since you've done it forever, are basically having self-confidence. What are you tell me the pillars?
The pillars, let's say, it is really being able to be vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
It that is huge
Mm-hmm.
because that comes to relatability.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can relate to your team members,
Mm-hmm.
they open up more.
Mm-hmm.
And when they open up more, one, you understand what's going on in their life and
Yeah.
maybe why some days their work just isn't up to par.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also understand their ideas.
Yeah.
And just because you're a leader doesn't mean you have the best ideas. A lot of team members, because they're in the thick of it, because they're dealing with processes every single day, they know instead of working harder, how to make this process work smarter. So
Mm-hmm.
being vulnerable, accountability, that's huge. People do not, and again, this just isn't leaders, this is everyone. We're afraid of failure, we're afraid of mistakes. But as a leader, if you can build that trust to say, hey, I've messed up so many times
Yeah.
there, and you give them permission to mess up. And by messing up, it's not like go out and mess up, but things happen, things don't work out, but you give them that space to try new things and then learn. So it's okay, this happened, but now what did you learn from it? You do that follow up question. So
Mm-hmm.
then next time, you know, they're not going to make that same mistake. But if you don't ask that follow up question, they're most likely going to make that same mistake
Mm-hmm.
again because of the accountability part.
Those are really good. Vulnerability and accountability. There's
Mm-hmm.
more. Come on, Cheryl. Give me some more. You're
There, oh
holding
my goodness, that you know that's for a whole nother episode.
No. One more. One more.
The biggest pillar, stop micromanaging.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
People who are allowed the freedom and the autonomy they give you so much more because they feel like they own it. When you're micromanaging and they feel like 5-year-olds having to deal with their parents, they're only going to give you the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Then when they feel like they have autonomy over what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know about other people, but I don't have time to micromanage, honestly speaking. Like, it's just, I'm not raising kids. I don't have kids for a reason. I have dogs because I don't like to micromanage. That's this has been great. I mean, you have shared so many great nuggets of information with everyone that's listening and watching. Is there anything that I have not asked you yet that you would like to talk about?
I always ask people this, and then I haven't prepared for it myself. Learn your story.
Okay.
So many people do not know their own stories, and it comes across. Whether if you're interviewing in media, whether you're developing relationships, or whether you're investing.
Yeah.
People don't know their own stories. And what I mean by that is really how to structure it and tell it.
Yes.
And you have to know your audience. We're so multifaceted. We have so many different career lifetimes.
Yeah.
That you have to be able to pick, okay, here's my audience. These are the stories I should share. So understand your story and learn how to pitch it well.
I love that. You're leaving us with some really good follow-up questions for next interview because this was not long enough.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Storytelling. Know your story. So basically grab a pen right now and go a notebook and craft everything that's in your head right now about your personal stories, and then put that in 2 sentences and then 4 or 5 sentences.
Yes.
Right? 30 seconds or 5 minutes. Or I'm sorry, 30 seconds or 5 seconds.
Yes.
Right? Yes. That's basically how it goes. Okay, well, this was amazing, Cheryl. Honestly, we have to have you back for a second round because this was so much good information. I learned so much. So I'm sure everybody else is also listening, learning from you. I will put where people can find you in the show notes, but where can people find you?
I am on Instagram at Embrace the Pivot, or on my website, drcherylrobinson.com.
Awesome. So I'm going to put that in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming again. And for everybody that's listening, adios, muchachos. Hasta la vista.
Bye. Thanks for having me.